Shalom Aleichem, Parshas Nasoy, Tafshin Pei Daled. I'm Zochel to be at Yitzi Katz's house in LA. With some people here, Natan's here as well. Yitzi just reminded me, it's Parshas, we're going to do a Parshas Sota, and Yitzi just reminded me of possibly the most important Shalom Bayis Eitzah that I've ever heard. It's not the foundation of Shalom Bayis, but it's an Eitzah, because we're talking about Sota, I think it's very fitting. Is what happens in a marriage generally is when we've got the offending party and the offended party. Yeah, that's how those dynamics change. Yeah, but there's always the offender and the offended. What the offended can do to help the offender, because remember, a marriage means we're on the same team. Yeah, we're not ever against each other. We're always on the same team. So we should be trying to help each other. But the problem is, it's a dynamic between you and me, but we're still on the same team. So how can I help you be nice to me? And this is an amazing answer. What happens is usually the offended, when the offender is offending, the offended allows the offender to keep going, and they stay silent. So that once the offender has finished, the offended has got more to be offended about. So what you can do is you can actually help your partner from offending you by telling them before this gets out of hand. So, like, for example, it could be that Yitzi insensitively says, give a shear in the kitchen, yeah? And his wife's like, okay. And then what generally will happen is the shear will go on and the wife will be quiet. And then after the shear, the wife will be upset. So what she could do to prevent that, to help her husband, is to say in the first place. It sounds like a simple thing, but if we can help the spouse who's in a defensive mode, yeah, if we can preempt that and help them not do that, then that shows that we're on the same team, and that's mamash a very good answer. So like the other day with my wife, I can't remember what it was, but I saw it beginning, that kind of brewing silence inside where the thoughts start thinking, I can't believe she's doing it. I stopped and I told her what I was thinking, and she stopped, and everything there was no problems. So that was just square hit. Okay, so I mentioned this yesterday, but we'll say it again. We'll tie in Parshas Rus and Parshas Naso. So in Megillas Rus. In Megillas Rus, there's a character called Ploni Almoini. Yeah, Ploni Almoini is like the Hebrew way of calling someone so and so. Yeah, it doesn't have a name, and the reason why it's called Ploni Almoini is because he basically is presented with the opportunity of a mitzvah of marrying Rus, and he says, yeah, I'll go for it. And then Boaz says to him, but by the way, just remember, it comes with a few, you have to give up your field, and you have to, it's not so passionate. It's going to cost you a little bit. And he's like, oh, you know what? I'm not going to do that because I've got my own ancestral heritage, and like basically. So we learn from this that it's quite easy to be involved in Avodas Hashem when it's aligned with our own personal agenda. When Hashem's agenda and our agenda is aligned, yeah, coincidentally, then why not? Like, I like singing and dancing, and he wants me to sing and dance for Kabbalah Shabbos, so let's do it. Great, everyone's a winner, yeah. But what about when our agenda and his agenda aren't synced in? Meaning that I'm going to marry this girl and I'm going to end up losing my inheritance. Yeah, it's not so partial. So Ploni Almoini says no, thank you, and therefore he loses his name. He doesn't have a name. Why? Because when somebody is taking their own agenda more seriously than Hashem's agenda, then he just becomes, what's it called, an LPL? Non-playable character. He becomes an NPC, which is like a mushroom or a turtle in Mario, an NPC. So why does he need a name? You don't have names for the turtles. You don't have names for the mushrooms. It's just the mushrooms, just the turtle. He's just Ploni Almoini. He's just the guy. He's just the graphic in the game. He's being played by the game. He's not a player in the game. So he doesn't deserve a name. Boyaz, on the other hand, now Boyaz is a big tzaddik, and Boyaz jumps on the mitzvah, whatever it costs him. And by the end of the Parsha, by the end of the Megillah, the famous pasuk that we say at Bris, where he says, "V'yikorei Shemoy b'Yisrael," his name should be called b'Yisrael. That's where that comes from. This is from Megillas Rus. It says that he should have a big name in Yisrael. That's what happens when we align our agenda with his agenda, Yisrael. Then we really have a name. Just like the Malach Esav didn't have a name, because he's by definition an NPC. He's by definition an NPC. He's definitely not what it's about, 100%. So he doesn't have a name. And Yisrael got called Yisrael. Every Yid, I once saw a big tzaddik say this one time, that when the Yid is involved in a mitzvah, he's putting on tefillin. As he's putting on tefillin, if you come up and say to him, "What's your name?" he'll just go Yisrael. Every Yid is called Yisrael. Shalom Yeshua. Every Yid is called Yisrael. That's the name. So it's Koirei v'Yikorei Shemoy b'Yisrael. Yeah, his name will be called in Yisrael in the context of Yisrael. So I'm Shmuel, you're Natan, you're Yitzhak Kiva, you're just Natan? Yes. Natan Yosef. Yoshi. And Yitzhak Kiva, Shmuel, Yeshua. That's our name, but it's B'toich Yisrael. We're really all Yisrael. We have a role within Yisrael, but really we're Yisrael. So Ploni Almoini, who couldn't give up his agenda, didn't have a name because he just became a NPC, a non-playing character, a non-playable character, whatever. Whereas we, who are consistently putting our agenda second to his agenda as well, we end up with a name. So let's just see how that ties into the Parsha. So we have a seder of three things. There's a lot of stuff going on in the Parsha. Three things basically in the middle of the Parsha is we have the Soita, then we have the Nazir, then we have Bichas Kohanim. Yeah? So it's all in the fifth aliyah, or fourth aliyah. Fourth aliyah? Yeah, fourth aliyah. So Rashi says, what causes the inyan of Soita? What causes this? I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's a tragic mitzvah. It's the response to a tragic situation. And Rashi says that it's because somebody is not being careful with matanas kohanim. He's not giving matanas to the kohen, and then he ends up having to deal with this whole thing with his wife. Yeah, what's up with that? So one of our biggest agendas, by the way, this is the inyan of B'chol Mo'idecha. Yeah, we have B'chol Levavacha, serving with all your emotions. Then we have B'chol Nafshecha, even if you have to give up your life. And then we have B'chol Mo'idecha. So what's Mo'idecha? Mo'idecha is money. Yeah? Because that's really the hardest agenda to give up. Mo'idecha means giving up your shita, which in English you could call that your agenda. Yeah, so Mo'idecha is your agenda, which is the Pashup Pshat, it means all your money, all your resources. Because giving up your money, that's why one of the reasons why tzedakah is mamash keneged kulam, because the give of your money is just very, very difficult. It's your mamash of your it's harder than your goof. That's what Rashi says. Some people it's harder to give up their money than their soul. Yeah, most people it's actually more difficult because that's really it's very much to do with your agenda. So this guy starts scrimping on giving tzedakah b'kitzah. So that means his agenda starts becoming more real to him than Hashem's agenda. Now what happens is he starts becoming very self-important, yeah? So how does a self-important person interact with his wife? He's not in it for her, because I'm so choshev, meaning I'm trying to get something out of her. She becomes a means to an end. That's a relationship called back to back. So as he's scrimping on giving money, he's becoming more important to himself. That means in his relationship with his wife, she's becoming less important to him. He's becoming more important. And now the relationship has turned from what can I give to what can I get. That causes Sota. If he's treating her like a means to an end, now he becomes a means to an end. And that could lead to all kinds of avails. And that would lead to Sota. That would lead to if she's really in it for herself, then she would be, then there's the chance of mamash, of niyuf, of infidelity, of Rahman al-Islam. So now what's the tikkun? So the Torah doesn't leave us there. The Torah talks about the Sota, then there's the whole void of the Sota to fix it, like to band-aid it up, so to speak. But what's the actual tikkun? The tikkun is Nazir. Nazir is from Russian Nizaher, to be careful. Zahirus, to be careful. The Nazir ushers on himself wine and cutting his hair and stuff, like all kinds of wine products. He basically, what's he doing? He's making himself less important. He's making a neder that he will be mamayit. He will he'll contain himself, yeah, which is a statement of becoming less important to yourself. Yeah, I'll put myself second to my neder. Yeah, that's the tikkun of the Sota wasn't the problem. Sota was a gilui, a revelation of the problem of becoming tight with his money. So then he has to deal with Sota. Once he's dealt with Sota, now the tikkun is Nazir, is take on something that's going to be difficult for yourself and deal with it and make yourself secondary, make yourself less important. And then what happens is B'chas Kodhan. So once that happens, and the person has now gone through the avodah of Nazir, which is he's become less important to himself, he's become outwardly focused, and his manner has become how can I help as opposed to how can I be helped, what can I do for you as opposed to what can you do for me. Now Hashem turns around and says, well, that, by the way, what's that relationship called? When you're asking how can I help as opposed to how can I be helped, what's that relationship called? Thank you, Hashem. Face to face, fun to fun. That's called a face to face relationship. That's the relationship that we should be having with as many people as we can. A back to back relationship means, like my relationship with the cab driver, is I need to get downtown. And so that's a back-to-back relationship, meaning I don't care about you, Mr. Cab Driver, or my Uber driver. All I care about is what you can do for me, which is to get me downtown. Nothing at all to do with you whatsoever. That's a back-to-back relationship. So this guy started a back-to-back relationship by the fact that he started holding on to his money, and then he ended up in a back-to-back relationship with his wife. Now, when you're in a back-to-back relationship with your wife, the growth, not you, when somebody's in a back-to-back relationship with their wife, the growth is called negative growth. Yeah. A back-to-back relationship is fueling itself and they're becoming further and further apart. Yeah. So this guy is getting more and more back-to-back in all of his world. He takes on a Nazirus. Now he starts thinking less about himself and he turns towards Hashem. And what does Hashem say? Yivarechecha, Hashem yishmerecha. Hashem yivarechecha, you, and he will bless you. Hashem will start talking to you. That's face to face. You can never say you when someone's back to back. Yeah. And then he says, Hashem ponov elecha v'pineka. He will turn his face to you. Now you've stopped being an NPC. Because an NPC, Hashem's just using you. That's a back-to-back relationship. But when you become a tzaddik and you're actually playing the game, now Hashem turns his face to you because you become mamash choshev in creation. V'yisa Hashem ponov elecha, and Hashem will lift up his face to you, yasem lecha shalom, and he'll give you shalom. Meaning you're now in a face-to-face relationship with Hashem. And then it says like this, v'samu esh shemi al b'nei Yisrael b'nei Arochem, and they will put my name That's my name. That's what happens now. When we become face to face with the Ribono Shel Olam, our name becomes replaced with his name, B'ezrat Hashem. And that's the inyan of the pasuk that we say at the end of davening. Yeah, because the Chazal say that when we're actually, I don't know if it's Chazal, but I don't know where it is, but I know that we say this, that when we're nifta, yeah, we're gonna, so to speak, forget our name and we're gonna remember our pasuk. Why? Because really we're the pasuk. When all of the nourishkeit and all the pettiness and all the small stuff falls away, which is what happens when we die, then you're just left as your pasuk. That's the Shem Hashem, because the whole Torah is just Shemus Kedoshos. So that means your personal name, actually you realize that the whole time it was really a Shem Hashem. That's why in the Gemara, the tzaddikim refer, the Tanoim, the Amoraim refer to each other as Moshe. That's Torah. That's who we are, B'ezrat Hashem. So, B'schus Parshas Naso, the longest parsha of the Torah, which is Kuf Ayin Vav Psukim, which is the same as the capital Kuf Yud Tes. There's also Tilim Kuf Yud Tes. Is also Kuf Ayin Vav Tilim and Baba Basra. Baba Basra, I think, is I think Baba Basra is Kuf Ayin Vav Dapim. I have no idea what that means. I would love to know what that means. Hashem should let us know what that means. B'ezrat Hashem. In the schus of the longest parsha, and all of the avoiders that we've done for Shavuos, and everything we've been doing over the past 3,336 years, B'ezrat Hashem should be able to come into Shavuos and do it properly. B'ezrat Hashem. Okay, positive.